Hello, everyone. Good morning. Good morning. I hope I'm not too loud here. Welcome to SpringOne at VMware Explore. I'm so excited to talk to all of you. Spring is, of course, such an important component of our portfolio, and our Spring developers, our Spring advocates, our Spring users are all what makes Spring really work. So Spring is not about a product, it's actually about a community. It is about the collaboration that happens. The disclaimer you all heard. So my name is Purnima Padmanabhan. I am the General Manager for the Tanzu division. So the Tanzu division within Broadcom has the modern application platform and the data platform. And anchoring the modern application platform is at the heart of it is Spring, right? And that is why, if you notice, there was a lot of worry and concerns. What will happen with Spring? Will we continue to innovate on Spring? If you notice, Broadcom has continued to invest and innovate on Spring. That is because Spring is at the heart of what we do with Tanzu Platform and how we make it enterprise ready. Double disclaimer. So, SpringOne. Look, Spring is, what I love about Spring is not just the community, but it is all the ways in which Spring touches everyone's lives. When I talk to customers, it's not just developers developing on Spring, some business logic, but these are things that touch our lives on a daily basis. Healthcare, financial services, energy, defense, whatever the sector may be, I find these applications that are written on Spring are fueling our economy, are fueling our enterprise, and are fueling our daily lives. And that is the power of Spring. And there was some conversation about Java or no Java. Well, Java is here to stay, and Spring is here to stay, and you all are thank you to all of you for making Spring real and very valuable. A big round of applause for yourselves. And then we have our customers. You will be hearing, there are going to be Spring sessions throughout the conference, and you'll be hearing from our customers. I'd like to name a few. Alight, who's here today, KLM, Fiserv, and many, many other stories on how you can actually apply Spring in the enterprise. Now, the nice thing about Spring is it continuously moves with the times. And that is because it is not sitting on a shelf somewhere. It is real. What I hear about Spring the most is that it is just simply easy. It's easy to use. Imagine having a framework that allows you to very quickly prototype an application and have it out and be enterprise ready and production ready very quickly, very fast, within hours. And that is the power of Spring. And that is why the innovation continues within Spring. And I'd like to quickly highlight some areas of innovation. The first part is, when there was a lot of conversations about frameworks and AI, there's a conversation, what is the relevance of frameworks when in a world of AI where AI coding assistants are building code? I think the big relevance is, how do you build that AI logic? How do you incorporate AI within the enterprise applications? And that is what we have done with the innovation on Spring AI. Not only that, we are injecting Spring knowledge into the coding assistants. Luckily, most coding assistants do a great job of Spring because of the volume of code that is out there. But with things like Application Advisor, we are injecting the knowledge of Spring into the coding assistants. So a lot of work on the AI side. A lot of work to simply make the Spring work better, right? Whether it is delivering faster upgrades of Spring Boot, making it easy to use, making it easy to manage so that it stays enterprise ready. And then putting enterprise class features. Improving speed by, you can see that, and in fact there was a conversation with Josh, he said, really, we sped it up by 2x? We have speeded up the startup time by 2x, decreased the memory by 20%, are providing governance libraries that can be built in so that you can control and manage your Spring environment very easily. And patches available from an LTS perspective. So a lot of investment. What I want the takeaway for you to be is we are investing in Spring, and you're going to hear from our wonderful panel of Spring, I guess, developers and advocates at VMware Tanzu. Now, the last takeaway for you is, reason we invest in Spring is because Spring is at the heart of VMware Tanzu and our Tanzu platform. And my commitment is that Tanzu platform will be the best place to run your Spring apps. It'll be the easiest, fastest, and the most performant. So if you want to learn more and actually see a demo of Spring in action, where all the way from building a Spring app to actually deploying it with AI and connecting to your data services, do join us at the session, which is Accelerate Idea to Code and Code to Production. It's Level 3 San Paulo on Tuesday, 3:30, okay? So with that, I'm going to hand it over to Phil.
Morning, everyone. It's great to be here. It's my pleasure to talk to you about the Spring portfolio in 2025. For anyone who had a heavy night last night, you're in Vegas, and it's August. And August is a particularly interesting time because it's exactly 3 months until we released Spring Boot 3.5, which is the last of the 3X generation. And it's 3 months until we're scheduled to release Spring Boot 4. And with that, we're getting a new majors for Spring Framework, all the Spring projects, and a new Spring project called Spring gRPC. What I want to do is take a bit of time to show you what we had in Spring Boot 3X and what we're going to do in Spring Boot 4X. And with 3X, we really tried to pick the best tools that we had at the time. So that meant Java 17 baseline, Kotlin 1, Jakarta EE 10. We had Jackson 2, JUnit 5, some custom nullability annotations that Spring Framework adopted and some Spring projects adopted, but not everything. We had a big push towards AOT and Graal support, and we were able to support virtual threads if you were using Java 21. If we look at Spring Boot 4 and Spring Framework 7, you can see we've raised the baseline for some of these things. So Kotlin 2.2 is now what we expect you to use. We're baselining on Jakarta EE 11. We're going to adopt Jackson 3 as well throughout the portfolio. And you're free to, hopefully most users will be able to just kind of upgrade their own apps to Jackson 3 as well. But Jackson 2 and 3 can survive alongside each other. So that could be a gradual migration for you. JUnit 6, we are standardizing on some nullability stuff, which I'll come back to. And then we have improved our AOT story with Project Leiden support. We're also really recommending that people adopt Java 25 if they want to use virtual threads. One thing you might notice is that the Java 17 baseline hasn't been raised. So although we are able to stay on Java 17, which we think is good for people that can't upgrade, we really do recommend that anyone adopting Spring and the Java ecosystem adopts the latest LTS release. So for most of you, by the time Spring Framework 4 is actually in your hands, that will mean Java 25. And Java 25 is bringing a lot of new enhancements, new runtime enhancements, a much improved virtual thread story, so much that we recommend Java 25 if you want to use virtual threads, and the start of AOT class loading and Project Leiden. I mentioned that Framework had nullability annotations in the previous generation, and there's a new project called JSpecify. And JSpecify is an industry-wide effort that is attempting to create a standard set of annotations and tooling around nullability. And the idea here is to patch the kind of billion-dollar null pointer mistake, as it's called. Throughout the portfolio, through every Spring project and Spring Boot, we are going to annotate our classes to let you know which of the methods accept null and which of them can return null. And what that means is you get a kind of first-class experience in your IDE. You also get a first-class experience if you're a Kotlin developer. Another advantage is that you can add build time support, so you can actually fail your build if you try and reference a variable that gets returned that could be null. You can use something called null away to do that. It's also laying the foundations for a project Valhalla, which is going to eventually have null supported types within the Java JDK itself. By us doing this work now, we're able to tell ahead of time like which of our APIs are going to accept and return nulls. By far the biggest effort that we've spent in Spring Boot itself is an effort to modularize the code base. So this has been going on for about 3 months before we actually released the first milestone. If we look, I've got some history here. So Spring Boot was first released in 2014. And at that time, the auto configuration jar was just 185 kilobytes. If we fast forward to today, it's now 2 megabytes in size. The reason for that is that we ship all auto configuration to all apps. So if you're using, say, Flyway to do database migrations, we'll auto configure it for you, but we'll also give you auto configuration for Liquibase, just in case, but you're never going to use that. Same with Webflux and WebMVC. We have lots of different modules that we ship all the time. Well, I'm pleased to say with Spring Boot 4, we've reduced the size of this jar back down to a kind of more reasonable 365 kilobytes. And the way we've done that is by making this jar kind of core part of the system and then offering individual modules for different components that you might want to use. And that means that we're no longer having to ship all auto configuration to all applications. It also gives us like a really clear signal now. So if you pick a particular starter, then we know that you want a particular feature. So for example, previously, if you used Spring Webflux, we didn't know whether you were writing a client or a server application. Whereas now, if you pick the web client starter, we know you're writing a client. And if you pick the Webflux starter, we know you're writing a server. So I know what you're thinking is like, that sounds great, but what's the pain for me? What's involved with upgrading my applications? And we think for most users, the effort's going to be relatively minimal. You might need to update some POM files, add a few more dependencies. You might need to change some package imports, especially if you're doing kind of deeper integration. So for instance, if you write your own health indicator, you can see that the package here has changed. App Advisor will be able to help you with this task. If you want to upgrade your app and sort of just get it back to what Spring Boot 3 used to be, you can have this new Spring Boot Starter Classic, and that will give you kind of pretty much the old behavior. With that, I'll leave you with some information about the talks that you can try. You can get this features today. We've just released M2. It's on Maven Central, so you no longer need a custom repository. And now I'm going to hand it over to Ryan Baxter, who's going to talk about API versioning and HTTP interface clients.
All right, just bear with me while I switch over to my laptop. Sorry, I'm gonna click a little bit here. All right. One second. I got it, thank you. I lost my spot in the slides. All right, there we go. All right. Hi everyone, my name is Ryan Baxter. Thanks Phil for the introduction. As Phil said, I'm going to talk to you a little bit about interface clients and API versioning. So first let's talk about the various options you've had for a while now to make HTTP requests within your applications, your Spring applications. So for a very long time we've supported REST template. I'm sure all Spring developers here are familiar with that. With the introduction of Webflux, we introduced a web client. And then more recently we've also introduced REST client. And of course, for a very long time, you've had the option to use any kind of third-party HTTP clients you'd like inside your Spring applications as well. And under the Spring Cloud umbrella, we've had a project called Spring Cloud OpenFane. And Spring Cloud OpenFane has been an extremely popular project. And for those of you that are not familiar with this project, you can create an HTTP client just by declaring an interface. So you write this interface and you annotate it with these @mapping annotations. And with the magic of auto configuration, you get an HTTP client that you can then use to make requests to this API endpoint, in this case, /dogs. This has been so popular that in Spring Framework 6, we actually brought this into at the framework level, or something very similar. And we called it interface clients. So you can see here, this is an example of interface clients. It looks very similar to OpenFane clients. The only difference here you'll notice is that we're using @exchange annotations instead of @mapping annotations. In Spring Framework 6, though, there was some additional configuration that you had to do. So you had to tell this HTTP service proxy factory about this new interface that you've created. And then you can either configure the REST client or the web client underneath to do whatever you needed to do, and it would use that client to then make the HTTP requests. We found, though, that a lot of this is boilerplate code, and so we asked ourselves, can we eliminate this? So let's take a look at how interface clients have evolved in Spring Framework 7. So here I have a very simple application. We're using the latest and greatest Spring Boot milestone, Spring Boot 4.0 M2. As Phil mentioned, there are no repositories configured in this POM because they're all going to Maven Central, making it easier for you guys to consume the stuff that I'm about to show you. So I have a client-server application here. On the server side, there is a REST controller, and oh, that's weird. Sorry. There we go. OK, thank you. All right. Sorry, this was the POM that I showed you that you didn't see. I showed myself. And then this is the REST controller. Thank you. So yeah, it just allows you to perform basic CRUD operations against a database that's backing this to add, create, read, delete various dogs in the database. On the client side, I'll actually show you what this looks like. So here we have an HTTP client. So you can make a request, and you can see over here, I'm sorry for the big font, I just want to make sure everyone can see it, but you get a list of all dogs back from the database. If you make this request here, you just get a single dog back, so you get the idea, right? On the client side, we have a nice web UI that I've written here. Very fancy, I know. You can click View Dogs, but right now you're going to get an error. And that's because the client doesn't actually know how to make requests to the server. So let's use the interface clients to do that. So in my client application here, I have this dog client interface already created. And I'm going to go ahead and add those annotations that we saw from the slides here. So now I have this interface client with the proper annotations to make the various CRUD requests to the server side. Now I need to tell Spring Framework about this new interface client. And instead of all the configuration that you saw in the slides, we have a simple annotation that you can use now called import HTTP services. And you need to specify a group name here. In this case, we'll just call it dogs. And then what types you want part of this group. In this case, we only have one, and that's our dog client.class. Now we just need to tell Spring Framework where the server is located. And so in Spring Boot 4, we have some configuration properties you can use. So I'm going to set HTTP client service group and specify that group name, dogs. And then I can set the base URL. And I can set that to HTTP localhost 8080. Now, actually, you can even further enhance this without using this configuration if you use Spring Cloud Load Balancer and a discovery client. But for now, we'll just hard code this URL in here. So I can go in here, and I'm going to start the client application. And then if I refresh here, I can see I get all my dogs, right, as I expected. So as a developer, though, there's one thing that's really kind of bugging me, and that's back in this server dog controller here. And I have this get mapping here. And this get mapping actually returns a list, you can see, but in reality, it only ever returns a single dog, so it doesn't make sense to return a list. And I really like to change this, but at the same time, I don't want to break all of my clients. So let's take a look at what else is in Spring Framework 7 that can help us out here. All right, so we want to evolve our dog API, and we have a number of different options we could go or take in this case. We can introduce a compatibility layer. We could use an API gateway, something like Spring Cloud Gateway. We could introduce a whole bunch of feature flags and graceful fallbacks to handle this thing. Or we could version our APIs. Luckily for us, in Spring Framework 7, we now have versioning built in at the framework level. So all your request mappings and functional endpoints that are part of your WebFlux and Spring MVC applications can now take advantage of API versioning. And versions can be resolved via header, request parameter, path, media type, or custom solution if you'd like. And by default, we assume the version is going to be semantic, so major, minor, patch. But if you want to customize that, you can use that API version parser interface. So let's jump back into the code and see how we can take advantage of this. So here I have the API that I want to change. I'm going to go ahead and copy it, because that's what all good developers do. And then I'm going to specify this new version attribute. And I'm going to set it to 0.0.2. And then I'm going to go ahead and get rid of the list that I no longer want. And then I no longer need to call list of either, so I can get rid of that. And then I need to tell Spring Framework where to look for the version information. So in my WebMVC configurer here, I'm going to override a method called configure API versioning. And so I'm going to call configure.useRequestHeader. So we're going to get the version information from a request header in this case. We're going to say XAPI version is the header name. And then we'll set a default version to 0.0.1. And then we'll also say that the version is not required. And that's just to help with, nope, that's not what I wanted. Version required false. That's just to help any existing clients that don't send any version information along so we don't break them. So if I go ahead and restart the server application here and go back to my little HTTP client and make my request to get a single dog, you'll notice that we still get a list back, right? But if we go ahead and add the header XAPI version here and set it to 0.0.2 and make the same request, we now get a single instance back. So we didn't break anyone, and we now have something. Thank you, Deshaun. We now have something that that actually makes sense. So on the client side, we can go ahead and change our interface client now. Here is, and so we also have the same version attribute we can set. So we're going to set 0.0.2. And then we also need to tell the client about how to send this version information to the server. So we are going to add a bean here of type HTTP service group configurer. And we're going to say for all interface clients with a type dog, or sorry, group name dog, for each client we're going to use this API version inserter, and we're going to insert the version information using the header XAPI version as the server expects. So we also, actually one thing I forgot to do here, I remembered that I did not change this to be a single dog, right? No one caught that error? Come on. All right. I'm lucky I just remembered that. And then I need to fix the usage of this. So we no longer call get first. Oops. There we go. So restart the client application now. And then refresh. We see we get everything as we expect. We can get a single dog using that new version of the API. So with that, I have the pleasure of now introducing Chris Roberts. Chris is from Alight. He's one of our esteemed customers. And he's going to talk a little bit about all the various, how the various Tanzu solutions have helped them overcome some key challenges. Thank you.
All right. Hi, everyone. So as called out, I'm Chris Roberts, VP of Enterprise Architecture at Alight Solutions. And at Alight, let's see if I can find the, oh, come on. There we go. At Alight, we help the world's best companies gain a benefits advantage. We are a leading technology-enabled services organization who helps our clients who are half of the Fortune 500 and 70% of the Fortune 100 with 35 million people that we serve on a regular basis. We help those clients gain a benefits advantage by providing health, wealth solutions to be able to have their employees be the be the healthiest and most financially stable that they can. Alight has our primary flagship application, which is Alight WorkLife. Alight WorkLife is a Spring Boot microservices-based application set that we use to deliver consumer experiences, interfaces, RESTful microservice delivery to be able to provide those benefit services. This year, we focused on a couple of key things, going through and asked our Tanzu team to help. So the first here was looking at serverless compute. And so we've made a shift to serverless compute with serverless container services running our Spring Boot applications. Those Spring Boot applications, as we were making those changes, we needed some help. We needed help to figure out the right frameworks to help us scale it, to make it performant in the new environment, to help us work with the various areas. And our Spring team, brought in expert workshops. They advised us with, frameworks, approach on really how to make that work within our chosen environment. The second challenge that we were calling out was, boy, it really is difficult in a microservices environment to have hundreds and hundreds of small Java applications that you now need to upgrade every few months. We were on about a 6-month cycle for refreshing Spring and Spring Framework. A couple of things that we worked with the Tanzu team on. One was Application Advisor, and bringing those recipes from Application Advisor in to help us make the development effort for those upgrades less. But in addition, we also came to the team and said, let's also get Tanzu support for our Spring applications, because it helps us lengthen that cycle from every 6 months to every 1 to 2 years as necessary, and we can choose how fast we want to go. That helps us get our developers to provide better, a better balance of business functionality to maintenance work as we go through. And last but not least, we really wanted our engineers in the organization to have a stronger relationship with Spring. So be able to really dive more deeply into the Spring application, get support. Our team helped with the creating workshops. Key things to understand topics that are in there, office hours, which help on a regular basis to keep those things moving forward. And, ultimately, really started to bring a greater depth of knowledge just through awareness and clear pictures on that. So what did that mean for Alight? For Alight, our target for that serverless environment allows us to do things like automatic scaling. It allows us to do things like right-sizing the various services and get a financial benefit from that. We see up to 50% reduction in cost for running our microservices in the environment, which is pretty significant for us. On the upgrade front, we actually have tracked it as 70% less developer effort to complete an upgrade. As we go through. And we really see a lot of that. We've both been able to reduce the effort on the upgrades and reduce the testing time by upgrading when we choose as we go forward. And then lastly here, our developer efficiencies. We are seeing developers get more comfortable coming into the office hours for Spring. We're coming in to ask a question and work through. And from that, it helps to reduce the burden on some of our subject matter experts. So that was everything I had today, but if you have some more questions or want to learn more, there's a customer panel at 3:15 today. My colleague Sheree will be on the panel and be able to talk through. And let me hand it off then to Josh.
Great job as usual. Oh, thank you. Oh my goodness, hi everybody. Let's see, got the computer, got this. Wait, hold on. Don't worry, it's gonna be fine. It's gonna be fine, don't worry. I've done this before. I'm a professional. Am I? No, yes, there we go. Well, it's plugged in. I did my part. Yeah? Okay, good. Hi, everybody. Goodness gracious, look at that. My name is Josh Long. I work on the Spring team. I'm so happy to see you. Look, before we get underway, can we take a selfie? All right, good. Please just pretend like you're happy. Smile, and we're going to take a big old photo, okay? And a 1, and a 2, and a 1, 2, 3. Say, open source! What is that about? Have some coffee. Try again. Open source! Oh, so much better. Thank you, everybody. Thank you. And you caught me updating some code that I was working on this very stage right here last year. This is an AI-powered assistant to help people adopt dogs from a fictitious dog adoption agency. And I was using Spring AI, but Spring AI has come a long way in the intervening year since we were all here together last time. There are so many amazing things that have happened in the Spring AI ecosystem, not the least of which is the burgeoning sort of growth of contributors. My goodness, there are so many amazing contributors to this project, so thank you one and all for all you've done there. And those contributors have meant that this project has just grown by leaps and bounds, serving all sorts of different use cases. In May of this year, we released Spring AI 1.0. Spring AI 1.0 came out. Look at those blogs. Those are, yes, I too am excited about the thing that happened months ago. Look at these blogs. These are all blogs released around the release date of Spring AI showing support for Spring AI. On the top row, you've got Microsoft, AWS, and Google Cloud, all with different blogs talking about Spring AI. These 3 companies agree on nothing, and yet they all agree Spring AI is awesome, right? That's a great sign for us right there. Yeah, huge. And look at that. On the bottom row, you've got Redis, you've got Elasticsearch, you've got Mongo, and you've got Oracle. Again, they agree on nothing, but they agree Spring AI is a useful story for their users. It's an amazing time. So I've been working on this code. I've been updating this code, and I wanted to update the code to take advantage of Spring AI's new tool calling support, right? So right now I've got a dog, it's an assistant to help people adopt dogs from our fictitious dog adoption agency called Pooch Palace. You can try it out like this. Let me just take this command here, right? Take that, and we'll go to the old command line here and ask it some questions like, hey, do you have any neurotic dogs in your inventory in the shelter available for adoption, right? And so last year I talked about my favorite dog, Prancer. So there he is. There's our favorite neurotic dog, Prancer. He's available for adoption, okay? Now, this dog, this is all well and good. The natural next step would be, hey, I want to adopt this dog. I mean, who wouldn't, right? Come on. So what I want to do now is to add agency to my system. I want to give it the ability to take actions on our behalf to support adopting that dog, but I need to know when I can swing by to collect the dog of my dreams, or in this case, nightmares. So what I want to do is take this dog adoption scheduler, which is a thing I've built that will it'll forecast a day, 3 days in the future, when I can come and pick up the dog, right? And I've annotated it with Spring AI's @tool annotation. Notice that here I'm just providing human language prose, telling the AI system what the thing does and what parameters it expects. When your mom told you to use your words, this is what she was saying, is to clearly label your AI inputs. That's what she was telling you, right? So here I have got a tool, and I want to inject this tool into my AI assistant. So I'm going to go over here into the constructor of my controller, and I'll inject the scheduler there, and I'll just say default tools scheduler, and I'll restart, okay? Now I can ask it the more important and reasonable next question, which is, when can I pick up that dog from the Las Vegas location, right? So here we go. Fantastic. When might I pick up Prancer at the Las Vegas location? You can pick him up on 8/28. Today is the 25th. That's 3 days in the future. You can confirm that the tool was called because it says scheduling Prancer, right? That's the system out from our tool invocation there. So that's worked. Now, I've written this patent-pending dog adoption scheduling algorithm. I might want to centralize that logic and repurpose it from different AI integrations. And this, by the way, is the real win here. Is all the enterprise runs on Java and Spring. This is a natural place to hang out these AI integrations. So I want to centralize that service, and I want to extract it out. And one way I can do this is to use a new protocol called MCP. Now, MCP is a very, very cool protocol that was created by Anthropic in November of last year. Do you remember November? I don't. Anyway, that specification defines an open protocol by which you can connect different systems using two different protocols. One is standard in and standard out, and the other one is remote streamable HTTP. And that's the much more interesting use case, I think, because we have so many interesting services that we'd like to export and connect from the web. So this protocol took root. There's a Cambrian explosion of new integrations and options out there. So many different vendors have support for it that there's just an unlimited number of things you can do with it. And we gravitated towards it very early. Right back in November, the Spring AI team built a Java SDK that integrates MCP. Our support for MCP was so early, in fact, that our Java support became the official Java SDK for MCP. Yeah, thank you. Thank you. Yes. I will take credit for that. I'm standing here having done none of that. No, but it was a lot of work. Let's not understate that. It was a lot of work. Okay, to add the support to keep up with this very, very rapidly changing landscape. Here, for example, is a picture of Spring AI contributor Christian Soloff before MCP. Okay, look at those long locks of hair, okay? He was so happy then, so young. And then this is Christian Soloff after MCP. His hairline receded 12 inches, okay? 12 inches, it was just a lot of work. So my point is, MCP is a really amazing thing. You don't have to do all that work to use it. You can just easily pull it into your application, as I'm about to do here. So let's take our code and build a new MCP service, a remote MCP service. So I'm going to go back to my old second favorite place on the internet, start.spring.io. I'm going to build a new service called Scheduler. And I'll use the MCP server support, and I'll use the web support. I'll hit enter, and I'm going to open this up in my IDE. It doesn't matter all that much what IDE you're using, so long as it supports the version of Java and Spring and so on that you want, okay? So I'm going to do something terrible now, something that you should never, ever do, ever, not even when you're all by yourself at home and no one is looking. I am going to copy and paste code, okay? So here's that. And now I'm going to export this as a MCP service, okay? Here we go. And I'm going to do that. I'll say return, method, tool, callback, provider, build, and we'll say default tool objects. And I'll just point it to the scheduler that I just built. Here we are. And I'm going to run this on port 8081, so port 8081, so it's not conflicting with the existing port. And I'm going to now pull that back into the assistant that we just built, and instead of depending on the local dog adoption scheduler that I have in the code base, I'm going to point it to the remote MCP service that's now running on port 8081. And in order to do that, I've got this MCP sync client definition over here, so let's just grab that right here, copy and paste, go back to the Java code, and I'll build a class MCP configuration. Okay, put that in there. At configuration, good. So I'm pointing to the remote MCP service, okay? And I want to inject that into my constructor here. List of MCP sync clients, okay, there's that, and here's this, and then there's that, good. So I've got the MCP sync client list. I need to now tell Spring AI to use that by giving it a sync tool callback provider, passing in the list. Now this is all well and good. I'll be able to reuse that scheduling logic, but wouldn't it be nice if in the same motion I could also get it to send me a Google Calendar invite? Wouldn't that be nice? So this is one of the nice things about MCP is you have this USB-C moment, this amazing ecosystem of different MCP services you can use. So I happen to have found one. I'm going to go ahead and pull that one in as well. Just define it in the same way I did the remote one, pasting that in there, okay? And now I've got both of these in the Spring application context. Let's restart the application and ask it to both schedule and provide us a calendar invite, okay? So I'm going to go down here, and I'll say, take that, go back to the console here, and it's going to say, fantastic, would you send me a calendar entry to pick up Prancer at the next available time for josh@joshlong.com. That's my, there we go. So let's let that do its thing in the background there. Fingers crossed. Okay, thinking. The AI is thinking. Okay, there we go. It says, I've successfully sent you a calendar entry to pick up Prancer. It's given me a date on 8/28. Remember, again, it's 8/25. That's today. So it's going to give us that. And now if I click on this, I'm going to open my calendar on a stage. What could go wrong? Paste that in there. Okay, I'm sure it's fine. It'll be fine. Don't worry. I'm not scared. There, look at that. Pick up Prancer, huh? So It's an amazing, amazing opportunity. You can build amazing systems and services using Spring AI. Obviously, there's so much more to see and do. Please be sure to join Dr. Mark Pollock, lead and founder of Spring AI, and myself Tuesday for beautiful Spring AI. And please join Joe Granja, Spring Security legend, for his talk on implementing MCP authorization using Spring Security on Wednesday, I think. And of course, please join me in welcoming my hero, friend, colleague, and mentor, Corey Berkeley, the legendary Corey Berkeley. Woo!
That was amazing. Amazing. Okay, wait. All right. And this is here. All right, okay. Wow, okay, so I think it's pretty clear so far that Spring is an incredibly powerful framework. Of course, many of you know that. Many of you are already experts building innovative apps every day in Spring. So you also know that building is just the beginning, right? You also need to connect to backing services. You need to deploy to production. You need to upgrade your app, as you've heard several times. So you'll know that Spring developers need more than just a framework, right? You need a platform that is optimized for Spring and that'll help you throughout the whole life cycle. And that is where VMware Tanzu comes in to help you build, test, run, and evolve your application. So some of you may already be familiar and be using Tanzu, and some of you may be asking, what exactly does this platform do for Spring? So I'm going to let you see some key features by way of a little bit of a game. So let's say you have an application using Spring Boot 2 and you want to add, as Josh just did, Spring AI. Well, the catch is that Spring AI actually requires Spring Boot 3.4 or higher. So the question is, what is the smartest way to upgrade your application? You might relate to a few of these choices here, but I vote for using Tanzu Platform's Application Advisor. So Application Advisor, you've heard about it several times over the course of the morning. It automates upgrades. It uses a comprehensive set of open rewrite libraries. So it doesn't just point out issues, but it actually goes into your code and it makes the changes. So you can run it from a CLI. That's a great option for incorporating it into your pipelines or when you want to drive the upgrade yourself. But a lot of us nowadays are experimenting with coding assistants right inside of our IDE. So you may be asking yourself, can I use it there too? And the answer is yes, it is also available. You just heard all about MCP servers. So Application Advisor is also available as an MCP server. So that means your coding assistants can call it directly. So if you have used coding assistants to try to upgrade code or an LLM to upgrade your code, you've probably noticed you have to send a lot of context and then often you just get back some vague suggestions. It still requires a lot of research and trial and error. So let's see what happens when we add Application Advisor MCP server. So here we start with an old version of Pet Clinic using Boot 2.7.3 and Java 8. We have our Copilot registered in agent mode, and we have registered the Application Advisor MCP server. So we can just now use natural language and ask for help with the upgrade very generally. So you can see we get a step-by-step upgrade plan. So we can go ahead and accept step 1. So this is going to do what it says there, upgrade Java from 8 to 11. So between steps, you can test, you can review, you can do individual commits, deploy, try it. But here, let's just go on to step 2 now. And so this is going to upgrade to Java 17, but also notice that it updated the GitHub action. So now let's make it a little bit more fun. Let's ask for all of the remaining steps to be executed. So you will see here, Application Advisor is invoked several times until the upgrade is done. So what kinds of changes do we see? So we see changes to the POM file, both the version of boot to 3.5.4 and others. There's changes to import statements, changes to actual code, changes to application properties, and even some net new files. So what you just saw was the LLM interpreting your intent and prompting the coding assistant to call App Advisor locally on your machine. So this has 2 big advantages. One of them is that your code stays local. So you save tokens, and you can use that context instead to communicate more meaningful information with the LLM. And the second one is that you get reliable Spring-specific updates automatically injected into your, made into your code and also integrated with your developer workflow in your IDE. So it is faster, cheaper, better developer experience, and better results. So fun fact, App Advisor MCP server is built using Spring AI. Okay, now we've got an application upgraded, we're ready to add Spring AI. So the next thing is you need access to a large language model, but not just any model. You need one that is enterprise approved. So how do you do that? File a ticket, use your own key, use GenAI for Tanzu Platform service, or download a model. Now, of course, GenAI is going to be your best bet, but let's see exactly why. So here we've got our upgraded version of Pet Clinic with a chat feature ready to go. So let's check out the Tanzu Marketplace. Is this running? Okay, so here we go. And so we're going to hop over here to the Tanzu Marketplace, which has a host of useful services. Right now, we're interested in GenAI, so let's check out that one. You can see here that it hosts a catalog of models. It could be things like OpenAI versus Anthropic versus a private LLM, or things for chat versus embedding, et cetera. So we're going to choose one that is hosted on the platform and create an instance called chat for our service. Now, when you deploy the application to the platform, you can simply bind it to services, and the credentials will be injected into the environment, and those will be mapped to Spring properties. But right now we're in development mode, so we want to do this from our local machine. So for that, we can create a service key, and then we can use those credentials on our local machine to connect directly with the LLM on the platform. So here you're going to see an example of a curl command doing just that. You can also take these same credentials and properties and use them in your local Spring application, Spring properties, and then your app can run and test against the platform. So that you'll see that now with Spring Pet Clinic running on localhost 8080 and connecting directly to the LLM on the platform. All right, so this shows a little bit of what you just saw with the GenAI service brokering the connection. Whether your application is on the platform or in your IDE, it can connect. And the LLM could also be running on the platform, or it could be running off platform, but the GenAI service either way is brokering that connection. And so it's fast, safe, and easy to use. Now, behind the scenes, all of the traffic to and from the LLM goes through an AI server. So this architecture unlocks a bunch of capabilities that make it easier for you to adopt AI responsibly and effectively. So besides the self-service access that you just saw, you can also switch models without touching your code, like from OpenAI to Anthropic, for example, because the AI server will take care of all of the API differences. It also tracks token usage, so you can monitor costs or spot inefficiencies. It keeps a journal of prompts and responses. You can use that for auditing, for improving user experience, or comparing models. And it allows you to integrate tools like PII Scanner so that you can ensure that sensitive information never leaves your environment. So just like App Advisor MCP server, the AI server is also written with Spring AI. And it's, we believe in using our own tools, but genuinely, Spring AI is the best tool for the job. Okay, final question. Whether you're working with AI or just a traditional application, at some point somebody's going to ask, can you prove your app is compliant? So think things like FISP, NIST, PCI, whatever your security team can throw at you. So what do you do, right? You might relate to some of these options. But really the thing that's going to help you most is to use the Tanzu extensions for compliance and security. And those, you can find those in Spring Initializer. They break into two categories. There's a governance starter that helps you, as your app is starting up, it'll make sure that it is compliant. Or the gateway starters, which enforce runtime policies like header injections, rate limits, TLS, things like that. So let's go ahead and look at the governance jar in action. So that is just a single dependency that you introduce to enable that feature. So we'll start up the application, and we'll see that it exposes a bunch of information through an actuator. So we're going to take a look at details and tests. Details basically describes your application. You have server TLS for inbound connections. So this opens up 2 ports for the web and for actuators. Within those, you see ciphers and protocols that are enabled. It also looks at the outbound connections, and those you can find under the client TLS. Here we have HTTP, JDBC, even the REST template that you can use for HTTP. It also lists security providers in the order that they're going to be used. And then in the test section, there are pre-configured tests that check for regulatory compliance. and also labels these as FIPS, NIST, PCI, et cetera, so you can go ahead and filter by those if you need to. And this model is extensible, so you can also add your own company policies. Now, per FIPS requirement, if your app is not compliant, the governance starter will prevent it from finishing startup, so it won't start up. Or you can configure it to allow it to start up for troubleshooting or testing purposes or development purposes. So, whether you are upgrading or adding AI or taking your application all the way to production, I hope that you also see why Tanzu is the best solution for your Spring applications. There's two ways to get these benefits. There's Tanzu Spring, which gives you time-saving tools, extended support, and then there's Tanzu Platform, which gives you that, plus easy upgrades, integrated AI, and production-ready operations. But either way, for Spring development with Tanzu, you will be set up to succeed. So if you're interested and want to try this out, go ahead and snap that QR code. You're going to get reference architectures, sample applications, and automated installer. So definitely give it a shot. And then join us. Enjoy the rest of the conference. We've got a lot of great breakouts here in the SpringOne track, Modern Apps track. There's Meet the Expert roundtables, quick talks, and we have besides the booth, we also have a very cool SpringOne lounge. So please come catch up with us there. Thank you.